Hello and welcome to the New View here with Gavin, James and Colin. We're back today in Tremor in County Waterford. And an interesting observation which I've noticed in the last week or two is that the weather has improved significantly, which can only mean that the state exams are upon us. So I invited a pretty esteemed guest here, Eoin Jackson. Eoin, you're very welcome to the programme.
Thank you.
Eoin is somewhat of an exam guru.
Yeah.
A go-to person in someone's hour of need. I think you've helped more people in this country than politicians have. And I have to say 3 years ago you helped me when I looked at my English exam. Eileen Quillan was there.
Brilliant.
So Eoin, you're very welcome to the show and I'm delighted to have you here today.
And it's interesting that Eileen Quillan made a
Appeared.
triumphant return this year as well. She was back.
In line with your prediction.
Yeah.
So Eoin, a lot of people may be familiar with you from your YouTube channel, but nobody may know about you as the person. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your profession?
Okay. Well, I grew up just across the water from here in Brereton Head, and got into teaching in 1998. So it's actually our 20-year anniversary of the school that we're running in town, called the XLc Project, and it's a family-run kind of school. It wasn't something I particularly intended to do, but it crept up on me. I suppose that's the best way to describe it.
And were you always a teacher?
No.
So how did this start? How did this family business or family school begin?
I was doing very little, just kind of living a bohemian lifestyle, playing music, trying to get gigs. Music was the principal focus. It was the year after I had dropped out of music college. It was like I went to music college, but my heart wasn't really in it, and I didn't attend. So I ended up failing on attendance and poor attendance, even though my exams were fine. But the attendance was an important factor. So it was the year after that, and I was just mainly doing nothing. And my mother asked me, would I get involved in what she was doing? So she was helping some people outside of. She was teaching in Water Park in the town. She'd been doing so for 30 years. And there was this one young lad in particular called Robert, who she felt was falling through the cracks because, the attendance officer will chase up people in certain socio-economic areas, is how that goes. But he was kind of upper middle class,
right?
And his mother had problems with alcohol. He was pretty much running the household. And she could see that his Leaving Cert was going to be a disaster, and she wanted to see him do well, so she was going out helping him in her own time. And when people heard she was doing that she was helping this one person, other people whose children were in trouble said, oh, is there any chance my son could come in on that? And so on. So it grew a little bit. And she was like, well, okay, Eoin, the bedroom at the top of your flat, we're in Henrietta Street at the time, and the top bedroom was huge. And she's like, could you put, so what we did was we put some patio furniture in there and use it as a classroom. And she was working in Water Park full-time still, and she wanted somewhere for the students she was teaching outside school to go for the day. So I just supervised that. They went up to the top bedroom, studied at the patio furniture. I'd call up every half an hour or so and say, are you going okay? Do you need any help or anything? Do you want to change subjects? Pretty much that kind of a role, without really, not too much hands-on really,
So when this began, was it more of a short-term measure? You never saw this materialising into a full school?
It was a short-term measure, definitely. We only had like 2 second years, 1 junior cert kid, and there was around 5 or 6 Leaving Cert people who came in the afternoon. And the building was not suitable as a school building at all. It was breached the fire regulations. There was no public liability insurance, these kinds of things. So the problem was, the following year, that one was very successful. The following year, there was more demand for the service, and my mother wanted to continue with it because it had been so successful. She thought it was a good way to do things. The mainstream school system, she wasn't a fan. She found it a very bullying atmosphere, and she thought there was a different way of doing it, where the students were treated with respect. Anyhow, so she approached loads of different people. Eventually, it was actually the Bishop of Waterford who put her in touch with Father Paul Murphy and Owen O'Neill of the Youth Services, and she met with them, and they said, we'll do whatever we can to help you. So they gave her rent-free premises to work out of in the youth service for that first year. And that's
So that was more.
direction
That was
it
the
went in.
turning point where it turned into a long-term
Yeah, this is
sustainable
the
project.
second year, where we found the youth services and we're still with them to this day.
Mhm.
So that's been a very long and enjoyable relationship with those.
You spoke a little bit about the word respect.
Yeah.
Where does your school differ from the mainstream public system? Where do you provide respect to your students where the other schools maybe don't achieve in doing so?
Well, I can certainly talk about 1998, how it was then. I think things are improving. A little bit. Like it's still a little bit draconian, but back when we started, schools pretty much as a rule were bullying environments. My mother, being at the coalface, what she saw on a daily basis was students bullying each other, teachers bullying students bullying teachers, the principal bullying everyone, teachers trying to get one over on the principal. Just a very toxic environment.
Yeah.
And also that there were a lot of pointless rules, like we have to have this shade socks, and these type of shoes, and we can't have piercings, and you know these kind of rules. A lot of them are still in place in many schools around. So that was one of the things. The way she saw it was, this is her vision, that we're like, she used to say Quainsworth, but I suppose we should say Tesco now. Yeah, we're like Tesco. You come into the shop, get your groceries, put them through the till, and that's it.
Get out.
So that we see it like that. Try to be non-judgmental about people, as in they come to us, they say, I want to get the Leaving Cert. We take that face value and we do whatever we can to help them without becoming, well, to do that you have to do this, and they put loads of conditions on it. It's like, you want this, we'll help you. If you're not available to help, that's your headache, you're the one who wants it.
So, in terms of teaching style, how do you guys at the XLc Project differ from the mainstream public system in your approach to teaching subjects?
Subtle differences. A lot of it is similar to what you get in school because there's a certain course that has to be gone through. So that's the focus. It's very much exam oriented, just to try and maximise their points in the exam. One thing that is very much a prime focus of ours is the past exam papers and exam strategy. Just going from that point of view of this is what you can expect the exam to be like, and here are some tips of getting through the exam. It's very much, this is all leading to an end of year exam, so it's very exam focused. That's one thing. Also, we try to keep in mind different ways of learning. You know, if someone is having a difficulty learning it one way, we'll try and see, is there another way to do it? Keeping an open mind and being flexible around how students learn. And try to make it interesting where possible. You know, like we've developed these history songs as one thing I can think of.
Yeah.
Where some of the stories on the history course have been put into songs.
That people can learn the song.
Yeah. Like we go through the history songs in the class, and then that's a way of helping you remember it then. Because you know, the songs are catchy.
So if some of our listeners are at home, and maybe we have younger listeners who are in secondary school today, or we might have parents listening at home in Tremor and the surrounding areas, and their Johnny or Mary is currently sitting the junior cert or is in second year, transition year, or fifth year, how should they know that your school is the right fit for their son or daughter? What's the profile of someone who's studying in your school?
It can be anyone at all. Mostly when we started out, it was to help some very hard cases, people who were kind of at the end of their tether with the school system. Maybe they were on the verge of expulsion or something, or were having insufferable bullying that they couldn't stand it anymore. That would be very much what we pick up. A lot of early school leavers. Now in 2018, it's a slightly different cohort.
What do you mean by that?
It's changed. We don't get so many of people who are early school leavers as such, or who are about to be expelled. A lot of the students who come to us have heard through word of mouth what we do, and they're choosing to come to us as opposed to going to a school. Like, they might not necessarily hate their own school, but they're choosing a different option. You know? Whereas back in 1998, it would be people who had no other option. You know, that would be one change. And largely, what you get is, you know, the kind of person who, say, might have their own individualistic style, maybe dyed hair, piercings, tattoos, certain dress sense.
Someone who doesn't fit in with the uniform.
Yeah, exactly. Who would have issues with not being treated like an individual and with having certain uniform restrictions being put on them, and they feel they're their own person. Often we get students who fit that profile.
So I assume in your school that one of the things that you pride yourselves on is embracing individualism. Is there a uniform in your school as well?
No, there's no uniform. Some of the things that we don't do that conventional schools would do would be uniform. There's none of that. Homework, none of that either. Try to make our classes productive and let people relax in their downtime, because it's just fair. Like the teachers go in and teach their class, and then at home they have their home time. I think students should be the same, rather than the way some students feel they have to go home, do homework, study, and especially in, say, the exam years,
it can be a bit
overwhelming.
overwhelming.
Take over your life too much to an unhealthy extent.
And how would you respond, Owen, to the people at home, maybe the more corporate minded, who might say, "Oh, but Owen, they need a uniform to get used to what it's like in the workplace"? What do you think of that kind of talk?
Maybe, but not all workplaces are like that. Some are, where there are certain rules and regulations, and the thing about it is, if you end up in a situation where you need to wear a uniform and so on, you're getting paid to be like, okay, well, there's a good reason to do this, Whereas in school, it's just to exert control. It's not, yeah.
So it's a pretty good answer. What is it, Owen, as whether it's as an educator or whether it's as someone who is, and we will get to it, someone who is incredibly intellectual? What is it that you love about education? If you could pinpoint one particular thing.
I don't know. I think that most people love to gain knowledge, to learn new things, to gain new skills, and just being able to transmit that to someone and them appreciating it. When you have that kind of bond going, it's very satisfying. You feel a sense of purpose. Like it's I think it's a good thing to do, and most people do love to drink in knowledge, especially if it's something they're interested in. Obviously sometimes you will have students who aren't that interested in the subject and just need to get the exam. They see it as a means to an end, but very often you will find that if you're trying to relate something to a student in an interesting way, that they will be glad of the knowledge. That it's just a philosophy that people love to excel at something, and once they've excelled, they like to go that step further. So we like to try and transmit the information in terms of small victories, like in a computer game, where you start off and you're pretty terrible, and you level 1, level 2, and eventually you get quite good at it. So we like to see our students experiencing some small level of success, and to build on those successes so that their confidence is growing.
So let's talk about excelling in areas. Most people, I can talk from personal experience about saying the Leaving Cert as any Irish person can. Well, most Irish people.
Yeah.
And sitting your 7 or 8 or sometimes 6 subjects.
Yeah.
In 2010.
Go on.
What did I do? You sat a total of 30 subjects and passed them.
Oh, I might have done that, yeah.
How did you do that? Although, and why did you do that?
At the time, they weren't all passed. This is kind of being economical with the truth.
Okay.
At the time, 3 of them were failed.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. It was like the ancient Hebrew, the applied maths, that was out of cockiness, and the accounting, because I hate it, were all failed at higher level.
Okay.
But they were like, I got them back. They were close to the 40%. It was 34, 36, and 35. But in this day and age, they would be classed as passes, and retrospectively, anyone who got an E in a higher level subject now gets 33 points for that, retrospectively. Wow. So retrospectively, given what today's standards are, they are considered officially passes. So I can now in clear conscience say I passed 30.
30
That's
subjects.
actually true now. Even though at the time, no, it was 27.
Oh, 30 subjects. 7 is stressful enough, right? It is. 7 is stressful.
It is. I did, in my first Leaving Cert, I did the normal amount of subjects, and I found it quite daunting, like most people of that age would.
So why 30, and why go back and do the Leaving Cert again?
Well, a couple of reasons. First of all, I'm obsessed with exams. That's the first one. In that every year I have students going in doing Leaving Certs, and I am jealous of them in the exam, having a great time as I see it.
Yeah.
Doing exams like, oh, I wish I was in there, you know. So I kind of get energized by the exams every year and do all kinds of last minute classes and ring people and do house calls and, you know. So I'm obsessed with exams anyway. In 2010, we were doing a few things to try and fundraise for the school. We're looking at trying to, you know, bring some attention to the XLc project and raise some funds, because it's not properly funded. Even now, it's not mainstream funded. We have to, from year to year, reapply. Anyway, in 2010, what I wanted to do, and here's where I am not very skilled. Marketing, hopeless. I'm no good at that. But the plan was to do 30 subjects, and the year was 2010, so it was going to be 20 higher level and 10 ordinary level to go with the year as a gimmick, like, you know. And to get sponsored and to raise some money for the school, that part of it never happened. Like, I tried to get people interested in it. I rang a few places in advance, but the truth of it was no one was really interested in that until the results came out. And then it was too late. Do you know? Like, when the results came out, I got a flurry of phone calls from all kinds of people. Right. You know, saying, oh, what did you do? Can I interview? Can I interview? It was like that, you know. But beforehand, when I was trying to drum up support, get sponsorship, I'm not very skilled. I find it very hard to do. It feels like begging or something, you know. And I don't think I relayed the story very well to them. But yeah, that was the point of it. Well, so from that point of view, it was kind of a failure in that it didn't raise any money. But I did do the exams.
You certainly didn't fail the exams.
No. The exams were great. I did all 30, passed pretty much all of them. You could say all of them, although I still think that's 27.
They must have provided
you. It was great. You had 6 exams for me. You see, I didn't think they were going to allow it.
They must have provided you with an individualised timetable or something, did they?
Not really.
How did they provide the time for you to sit 30 subjects?
Well, it got very messy toward the end. At first, it was straightforward enough, where I was doing morning exam, evening exam, most days. I was in every single day in the exam centre. Now, when it got hairy was the very last week of exams, because what they do in the last week of exams is they put the less popular subjects there, and they're like, it's this or this, they're on at the same time as one another. What ended up happening was there were some days when I had 3 exams that day, so I'd be there till 8:30 at night. Now, the very last day of exams, the Friday, you had Italian, Japanese, applied maths, religion, and technology were all on the one day. I was doing all of them. So I knew this in advance, and when I was making my application to the State Exams Commission saying, can I do this as a kind of fundraiser, you know, would it be okay to apply for 30 subjects? And I realised this would be a problem, so I made a suggested timetable of I could do this, go from 9:30 and do all 5 exams straight through with half an hour break for lunch, half an hour break for dinner, and it would have finished up at just before 12 midnight, and they approved it. They said that's fine, and they had 3 different examiners that day, superintendents. Yeah, that took the morning shift, the middle of the day shift, the night shift, and so like I realised that it would have been extra expense for them to, you know, pay the superintendents and that, but I was glad they allowed it anyway. I was like, great, I get to do the challenge.
But how did you pass 30? So, well, 27 or 30. How did you pass them? How did you find the time to study for that many subjects?
I didn't do too much study really. I tried to, you see, there was some opposition from people in my family who were like, this is ridiculous, Owen. Don't do this. It's going to take time from your other commitments in life. So I made it a mission. I was determined that it would not impinge on the rest of my day-to-day life, that I'd still administer the courses to the students to the best of my ability, still run the tournaments in the school, do all the things I normally do in a year, and do the 30 subjects on top of that. So I managed to do it. I don't know how I did, because it was a huge undertaking, but I ran a huge tournament that year in school. We actually released a single for charity as well that year too, and that took a lot of time and energy. But managed to get through the 30 subjects as well, mainly because like I teach in the XLc project all the time, and sometimes I have to turn my hand to subjects that I don't normally teach. Like if there was a student for physics, say, which isn't one of our regular subjects, I would have to look up the syllabus, I would have to look up the past papers and try and get that student through the course. Okay, because we've so few staff members, often I've had to turn my hands to many different subjects. So I had familiarity with a lot of them. and some of the other ones that I didn't know, like the ancient Hebrew and the Japanese, like what I had around about 8 trouble subjects, ones that I thought I could fail, like DCG, Japanese, ancient Hebrew, a few others like that, and I put a little more effort into those ones. Like I actually went on Facebook and asked anyone, did they know someone who knew Japanese, and it just turned out that 1 year earlier, a lad called Nicky, who was a cousin of one of our students actually, had done the Japanese in the Leaving Cert and gotten a B in ordinary level, because he was dating a girl from Japan, and he agreed to meet with me and gave me a lot of help with it, and so a few things like that helped along the way. I didn't really start studying properly until 2 weeks before the exam started. I made a timetable that ran from 8 a.m, ran half 8 actually, until 2 a.m. But I was so obsessed and so into it. It was like, it wasn't like punishment. It was like a treat for me. And there were so many different interesting subjects to look at. You know, it was like 45 minutes of this and then 45 minutes of that. It's like, oh, you know. So yeah, it was interesting for me.
So, you know, you said yourself that you tried to ensure that while this challenge was happening, that you maintained a normal life.
As best as I could, yeah.
What was the greatest challenge that you faced?
For the subjects now, or in other...
In your personal life, or in...
I'm just trying to think, is there anything particular? Well, Clodagh wasn't too impressed with me when we were recording the single. We did this thing, we called it the XLc song, we put it on the internet and that. And the students of the school were all on it. It was a big kind of gospel-y sort of thing. Yeah, that's the right word for it. She was left doing a lot of the mixing of that while I was doing, you know, Leaving Cert stuff, and she wasn't too impressed by that. So that's one, we nearly had a row while recording that song, because I was doing so little and she was left doing the bulk of the work. So that was one thing. Aside from that, now there was nothing else particularly. Revolution were deadly.
Oh really?
Yeah, they provided a dinner for me on the last day of the exams. I was there, like, I had half an hour for dinner, and they knew I was doing this challenge, and they knew what my favourite dish was from their place, and they offered to send it over to me in the manor, because they were just across the road.
That's really good.
So that was deadly. That really stands out to me. Something that was sound.
So what, you know, from going through any challenge, you know, one of the things that we do is we learn from it. Is there anything that you learned about yourself from engaging in this challenge?
No.
Did you ever doubt your ability to do it?
I knew I was that way inclined anyway. I knew that once the exams came, I'd get exam fever, and I would. Very slow in exams. I'd do every question. Like I try and make up answers. I do whatever I can to pass. You know, I knew I had a fair chance of passing a good few of them. I didn't think I'd get all 30. 20. I was happy with 27, and now that's been retrospective upgraded to 30. It's like happy days. You know. What I learned was more about the exams themselves, and it gave me good insights of subjects that I hadn't really thought about before then. That's like, oh, this is a good subject to do for our students in the future.
To get them to
yeah, that was a really useful thing of doing those subjects, was just gave us some insights into certain subjects that we should offer our students that are, you know, handy enough. Like the phys chem is beautiful.
I've heard people say that.
Subject.
There's like a mixture of ordinary level physics and chemistry combined into one.
It's not bad. It's just what's great about that compared to the regular subjects, physics and chemistry, is that the combined subjects has 12 questions, do 6. So much choice. You know, that's always a good thing on an exam paper.
So the year that you embarked on this challenge, you also started making predictions for the Leaving Certificate.
Yeah, I look back on those videos. I did like 30 videos, one video for every single subject I was doing, just giving tips and predictions of what I thought might come up on the papers. And like I do that every year since. Since then I've done it on YouTube every year, and this year I'm struggling to get all of it done, and I'm like, how in God's name did I get 30 videos done from scratch with no template to work from? It's the first time doing it, and do 30 subjects as well. How did I fit it all in? It's like, I don't know how I did it.
And your channel is Leaving Certificate.
Yeah.
You have 3,500 subscribers, with some of your videos up into the mid 20,000 views. Did you ever see yourself getting into this, Owen?
No.
Even if you loved exams, I mean, did you ever...
YouTube?
Yeah.
Oh, I got obsessed with YouTube.
But predicting exams on YouTube?
That started a long time ago. Not on YouTube, but predicting exams is something I've done.
It's a hobby of yours.
I've done it so long, yeah. I first did that back in 1994 when I was 18 going on 19, because what I did was in 93 I did my Leaving Cert, and I wasn't happy with two things, my maths result and my music result. My maths was an A2, I wanted an A1, and my music didn't exist because you didn't have it in Water Park, but I wanted music in my Leaving Cert, so I repeated for those two reasons, and it was mainly just myself, a friend called Trevor, up in the library, outside school, doing it, the Leaving Cert. My sister Claude was also doing the junior cert at the same time, so it was a little study group with 3 people. They were great days actually. But during that year, the repeat year, I had to fill in all the paperwork myself because I was an external candidate. And in doing that, it turned out that it's just about being a cheapskate really. It was the same price to do 8, which I was going to do, as it was to do as many as you wanted. So I was like, oh, I could sign up for loads of these, you know? So I ended up signing up for 20 of them. And I was like, you know, it was kind of a laugh, like, it was like, okay, I'm going to do my 8 subjects, and I'm going to do these other 12, and just see what happens, like, you know, with no expectations of passing. It was like, you know, if I passed 10 of them, it'd be great. It was only when my physics teacher from Water Park, Mr. Wheatley, said to my mother, who was working there, said, well, what does he think he's doing? He'll be lucky if he gets 13 of those. I was like, will I now? And I put a bit of work in then, and I passed all 20 of them.
Wow.
But part of passing them, I've been able to pass that huge amount of subjects, because I was very worried about it, because I was only like 18, I didn't have much confidence in myself. I looked at all the past papers and made predictions of what I thought was going to come up, and I thought it was really beneficial because a lot of the stuff did come up. It worked really well. I was like, if it wasn't for them now, I would have been screwed in a lot of those subjects. So when I started doing stuff in the XLc Project a couple of years later, in 98, I was like, oh, well, you know, that helped me when I did all those subjects, so maybe I should try and do predictions for certain subjects for our students, you know. So I've been doing that since I started in the manor, the whole way through, and then in 2010 it was, you know, it was the first time that I actually put those predictions on the internet. I had never done that before, but it is something I've been doing for years and years. So it wasn't new for 2010. The predictions weren't new. Although some of the subjects were, like DCG I'd never done before, a few of them.
So how, you know, a lot of people might be wondering when they watch your videos, how does this magic happen? How do you predict them? How do you predict the exams?
Anyone could do it. It's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. Anyone could do it. But the thing about me is I have the database all there. I've been doing it for a long time, so I already have these booklets with the past paper analysis done. All I have to do from year to year is add in the latest year into that analysis and then make forecasts for the coming year. Every year I do intend to get it done early in the year, but it always gets, there's so many things going on that it gets put on the long finger, and I usually end up doing that analysis in May and uploading the videos end of May, early June, which is last minute. And I do get criticism online from, you know, you get the trolls saying you could have done this earlier or whatever, but it's meant to be just for your last minute study really. It's like you've done your 2 years of Leaving Cert, you should know most of the stuff. It's like basically but the night before the exam you're going to look over some stuff. What stuff is the best stuff to look over? That's the purpose. It gives an order of this one, then this one, then this one. Look over those in order and you've got a good chance of being covered. That's the point of them. So it's meant to be for the last minute anyway.
But even if it's so easy for people at home to make predictions and to come up with plans of what's going to come up on the exam, you're incredibly accurate.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Just how it's done, I'll explain it.
Because your accuracy is pretty dead on.
It can be good sometimes. Sometimes it goes wrong. Like I monitor the accuracy from year to year, because if it was too bad I wouldn't continue doing it, you know. And sometimes you'll have, like, especially notice it in the history, let's say you might have a pretty bad year 1 year in history where some things you expect to come up don't come up, and it's like, oh, they weren't the greatest predictions this year. The following year they're going to be deadly. It goes in cycles. That if you have a little bit of an off year where it's not exactly as good as you hope it would be, predictions, the following year the topics that you said were going to come up that year are even more likely to come up the following year. That's just how it goes. Because, you know, I mean, they do try to be unpredictable. They try to be, especially in the last 5 years. They actually sent out paid a huge amount of money actually, which is a bit obscene considering the country doesn't have that much money to splash around, to an external body from a different country, can't remember what country it was, to do an analysis of predictability in the Leaving Cert and give recommendations.
They could have just hired Eoin Jackson.
I could have told them in 2 seconds how to make the exams less predictable because they've done it. And I saw this comment, I was like, if they do this, the exams are going to be impossible to predict. And they've done it in geography, they've done it in business a bit, and this is because of the recommendations they got. And simply just, instead of having a long question on one topic, have a long question with parts, and the parts be different topics. Once they do that, the predictions become less and less useful. So like I do geography predictions each year, but I see them as being fairly worthless because you could say, oh yeah, you're going to get landform development, you're going to get impact of human on landform development, you're going to get sketching your ordnance survey map. But if they all come up as different parts of different questions, then you may as well just study the whole course anyway.
Yeah, the whole
So
course.
That's how they have managed to cut out predictability in the Leaving Cert, is 2 things. Firstly, have subtopics that are unrelated to one another within the one long question. And that's a killer for my predictions.
That's awful.
And the other one they've done is to, with new courses, restrict it so you have less choice in the paper. Like, that's why Phys Chem is a beautiful subject, it's more predictable, because there are 12 questions to do 6. Loads of scope to focus in on what you're best at. But in the actual subject, chemistry for example, you're talking, I think it's 11 questions to do 8.
Yeah.
Much less scope.
And how exactly does your methodology work?
Okay.
What do you do when you sit down and you create an exam?
Right, I'll finally get to answer this question properly because you've probably asked it 3 times now. So what I have is I have a sheet that has, at the top of the sheet, I actually meant to bring it with me but I forgot.
That's alright.
So you could look at it like, but anyway, we'll talk through it. So you have a sheet, and along the top of the sheet you have the years, going back sometimes around 15 years back maybe. And then there's columns. It's like an attendance record book, so very thin columns. And in the columns is a red circle if it came up as a long question. And you can just see all the topics listed down here, the years, the circles to show when they came up. And you can see the pattern of, okay, well this one's on a year, off a year, on a year, off a year, on a year, and it's been off the last 2 years, so it's almost certain to be on this year. And depending on how hot they seem to be, they go higher on the list. Like sometimes it's because a topic is asked so regularly, like in biology, genetics, it only missed out 1 year in the last 20, that kind of thing, you know, so it's like nearly a guarantee to be up as a long question every single year. You can nearly bank on it, although they have left off once as a curveball. They could do that again, but generally it's around. There are other ones where they're not so regular, but because it's been so long since they've last been asked, they're due to pop up very soon, so you'd have them fairly high on the list as well, those kind of topics where, you know, and so it's just a matter of trying to gauge what the hottest ones probably are based off the purely past paper analysis, nothing more.
And so
that's it.
So you've said that it's a last minute thing, that you should look over these topics the night before.
That's an excuse though, Colin. It's an excuse for me being lazy, not doing it early in the year.
No, but for the students.
Like I could have that up in September,
But for the students, that it's supposed to be a last minute guide for them.
Yeah.
But of course you've mentioned the trolls. So how do you feel when you get people who say, oh, I trusted this asshole however many years ago, screw him, listen to nothing he says.
I picked up a pet troll in 2016.
Really?
Got a pet troll in 2016, yeah. This young lad called, I don't know, he must be originally from a different country or something because his name's very unusual. It could be just like the pseudonym, but it's Talat Rolo, kind of like toilet roll. Talat Rolo is his name, and he was like given abuse in 2016, saying how terrible it was. But then in 2017, this is the weird thing, he came back when I started uploading videos and saying, don't trust this fool, he ruined my life. You know, so, and he came back in 2018 as well as a few on the home ec videos saying, I trusted him in 2016 and I failed my Leaving Cert and my life's been ruined since. And it's like, oh God, I haven't replied to him because, you know, you're not meant to feed the troll.
No, but maybe they'll see it.
You know.
Maybe they'll see it now.
I replied to him last year, I think, and it was a mistake.
Oh, really?
Don't get involved in that.
Okay.
But this year I saw this comment on the home ec and I didn't bother replying, and someone replied since saying something like, "Oh, I'm so sad, sorry to hear that it didn't work for you, but the prediction was really good this year, so I'm happy."
Yeah.
It's like, that'll do. That'll
So
do.
you don't.
I don't have to answer them.
But you do read the trolls, do you?
I read the comments. I mean to reply to them, but it depends. Like June is usually so busy. I'm
Yes,
usually
for
doing. I'm in supervising the exams, checking in with people, doing last minute classes galore. So it's I get to see the comments, and I intend to reply to them. I'll probably reply to tomorrow because I'll have some time.
But it doesn't.
It's not
it doesn't
priority,
weigh you,
like-
but it doesn't weigh you down either. Hearing their
No.
nonsense.
No. What would weigh me down is like I'm not happy with how the State Exams Commission have changed the way the exams are set to make them less the predictions less useful. That's upsetting to me. If it came to a point where I thought the exams were changed so much and the predictability was so kind of like nullified by the measures they've taken, and then I stopped doing them.
Yes.
But as I see it, there are certain subjects where it's still definitely worth doing. I'm really afraid to say what those subjects are in case some State Exams Commission looks at it and says, okay, we have to fix history. But history would be one now where they're usually very, very useful, especially at higher level. Because higher level, you're looking at 3 long essay questions, and if you know the 3 topics that are coming up, you're in business. So they can be very useful for that subject.
Next week, starting on Monday, we have a maths paper 2 and an Irish paper 1 to kick off the week.
Yeah.
And there's other subjects during the week such as business and the other maths paper and the other Irish paper and history. Would you have any tips on that you could share with our viewers or listeners about these upcoming exams?
I do indeed. I meant to bring all my stuff with me for the predictions, but I forgot it. So it's just basically what I can remember from the top of my head. Now, luckily, the videos, they're online already, so at least there's that. And I'm trying to get them up as fast as I can.
We can link them.
Great, yeah. But the ones for the coming week, like business, do I remember anything about that? Nah, remember nothing. Art, I remember that for the ordinary level, there's going to be Donatello and Michelangelo are 2 of the very likely artists to pop up in that paper. Also, it looks like Newgrange and High Crosses, you can't really bank on them this year, and a lot of people like those topics. But the pre-Christian metalwork should be good for this year. That's one I'd expect to see on the paper for the ordinary level art anyway. History, for the later modern history, a higher level, I'd say, this doesn't really take much to say, but Stalin, he's very regular. He should be up again this year. That's a long question. Also, the French, what was it? French? It's instability in France. That's another one in that area. For the America topic 6, Vietnam should be up, and Vietnam should be up.
Yeah.
Yay. What else did we look at? The Irish. Oh, Porrick Pierce, wasn't it?
Porrick Pierce.
We just had a quick look at a sneaky look at the video in advance of this to remind myself what the hell it was I said was coming up, because I don't necessarily keep that all stored up here. But yeah, it was Porrick Pierce is looking likely in the Irish topic 3, I think it is. And Irish topic 5 was
I can't.
it was, I'll get this. Oh no.
There's a good guide there. There's a good guide there.
It is there online anyway, so you can have a look at all the topics in order of likelihood of what I think should be on the paper this year. And the history, I've good faith that should be quite helpful this year.
And as long as there's still a level of predictability there, you will continue to predict the papers and save many Irish teenagers. Is that correct?
Hopefully. Do you know, I had a few strange experiences around that, like surreal. It's really unusual when you do something and you just think that's something I've done now, and you put it behind you, get on with your life, and then it comes back to haunt you in some way. Like like with the predictions, I was downtown at Spree one year, and some fella came up to me and said, "Oh, you do the predictions?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I do." Weird, And the strangest one of all was I was going over to England last August at the airport, and there were these 3 young lads. And they're kind of looking at me funny. Like, okay. And then they're like, Eoin Jackson. I was like, yes. And he's like, thanks so much for the predictions. They were really useful. It's just like, oh, okay, no problem. And they're asking, oh, how do you do them? I said, it's just, we're having a conversation. And there were 3 of them, and they all knew about the predictions. One fellow was really enthusiastic and really kind of, it was so helpful. One fellow was really kind of skeptical, kind of, I think you suck. Got that kind of vibe off him. But anyhow.
But you've
it was very strange being going off on holiday and suddenly people saying, oh, this thing that you did, and it's like, oh, yeah, of course people see that, you forget.
People get it. I've seen it. My friends have all seen it. You helped a lot of people out. Let's talk countdown.
Oh.
You have appeared on the show.
Love the show. Love it.
You brought us a few.
I brought some goodies from Countdown. I meant to bring some prediction stuff as well, but I forgot. But I have some Countdown stuff.
People are going to like this. People are really going to like this.
What would you like?
I'd like a vowel, please.
A vowel, please.
A. Can I have a consonant?
You can.
These are real tiles from the show. Unbelievable.
This has a count on the back. This one has nothing on the back. Yeah. These are probably my most prized possessions from having gone on the show, because it's just you don't get them.
No.
Like they guard them very, very closely. I wanted a 7 as well, actually, but no.
Didn't happen.
It was really hard to get those 2 as it was. This one was kind of on a discard pile because it has a blemish in it. There.
Yes,
so
they
couldn't really use it anymore, so it was on discard pile. So I just kind of went yoink.
Mine.
Yeah, because I could see it wasn't going to be used again. So I said, yeah, I might as well have that. This one though was actually an active letter. What ended up happening was it was your man who hosts the show, Nick, who smuggled me this. So I'm eternally grateful to him for that. And it makes a word.
Yes.
That's handy. Or alternatively, this if you like. So I'm happy.
And you also have the famous countdown.
Iconic. I had to bring this along as well because it's just so cool.
Unbelievable.
I haven't actually made tea out of it yet, but it's just like I have a little countdown shrine in the house, just on a top of a bureau thing, where I have all my countdown paraphernalia there, the cup, the book from Susie, the dictionary as well, and there's the series finalists prize as well. It's kind of a very nice looking thing. But this is the one that everyone.
The prize possession.
Yes.
You earned it.
Yeah, it's like the what do they say, the coveted pointless trophy.
Yes,
I'd love to go on that as well, but
you might make an appearance. Yeah,
they won't let you. You have to be resident in the UK for that one. Countdown Nights is actually one of the few shows that will accept people who are resident in
other countries.
Ireland, no,
is it only UK
and Ireland? Only UK, yeah.
Maybe you should buy a little place up in Northern Ireland, and that'll get you eligibility.
Yeah, try and find some way to teach your way on.
I think
Countdown was wonderful.
I think nearly everybody knows what Countdown is.
Yeah.
It's a national treasure in the UK. Can you tell people a little bit what is Countdown if they're unaware?
Yeah, if you don't know the show, it's a quiz show. It was the first show ever broadcast on Channel 4 back in 1982. And it was hosted for a long time by Carol Vorderman, who a lot of people would know, and also Richard Whiteley, who sadly died in 2005. But it's where you get a scramble of 9 assorted letters, consonants and vowels, and you have to see the longest word you can make from that scramble. So it's kind of an anagramming game. And then the final round is your conundrum, famous Countdown conundrum, where you get a full 9-letter scramble that makes one word and you buzz in so you can solve it fastest. There's also numbers rounds as well, where they give you 6 numbers and a target at randomly generated between 100 and 999, and you have to see can you use basic mathematical operations to find the target.
So when did you apply and how did you apply?
I went on this nerdy site called Aptures in 2010. Is the start of all this.
2010 was a big year for you.
It was actually.
Was a really big year.
That was after the Leaving Cert was over though. It was kind of the end of the year, the chilled part of the year. I just happened to. There was a young lad on the show called Jack Hurst who was an Octochamp, and I think he won the series. But he mentioned that there was a place online where all former series champions and quarterfinalists met up and played each other. In real time. I was like, this sounds brilliant. He didn't say the name of the site, so I had to do some hunting. Very hard to find it back then, but I eventually found the right site, joined up. You get 50 trial games. It's 30 trial games now, but at the time it was 50 trial games. Then you have to pay a subscription of something like €20 per year. It's nothing. So I signed up to that site and was playing Countdown online. Now the people there were like, oh, you're not too bad at the game. Now as far as Aptures is concerned, that the standard there is crazy. Like I'd be medium to low talent ability compared to others on that site, but still they were saying, oh, you're not too bad at the game, do you ever consider applying for the show? I was like, no, I didn't consider applying for the show. Like, oh, you should know, it's great. And they're trying to talk me into it. And said, look, what I do is, and at the time it was, I think something like series 60, 66 or 67. I was like, what I'll do is, if it's still going for series 77, I'll play. Because I have a kind of fixation on number 7. So it's like series 77 I'll play. And I thought nothing of it. And my interest in counting, like, I'm not like hugely obsessed with Aptris, with counting and Aptris. I go on it for a month or two, lose interest, come back to it, you know, kind of come and go between it, dip in and out. I wouldn't be a hardcore on that site. But it was coming very close to series 77, the one I said I was going to appear on, and it was also going to be in the year 2017, which is another 7. It's hard to resist those 7s. So I was like, actually, I'd better apply. So I kind of found out from the others, when do you need to apply to appear on a certain series? So they were saying April, apply in April. So I applied in April to appear on series 77, and they were going to put me on, record me in May, but that would be hectic because of the Leaving Cert, you know, it gets quite intense around May, June. So I asked, was there any way I could go later? And it turned out that Rachel, the lady who does the numbers and puts up the letters these days, she was going on a massive cruise holiday with a group of her friends, so they were having a very long summer break because of that. And they said, if you come back, we'll film you in August. So I was like, yeah, that suits me perfectly. So it was early August that that I went over to Manchester to record my shows.
And that's how it all began.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the experience.
Oh, it was great. Even from the very first interaction with the people who were on the show, it was brilliant. Like, I had a phone audition. If you don't pass your audition, you don't get on. And your man who ran that was so relaxed, he was so friendly. And that was a running theme throughout. Like, they're meant to be friendly to the contestants and put them at ease, but they do it naturally. They do. It's not even put on, it's not even fake. They're just so nice.
It's them being themselves in that way.
Kind of, yeah. They've hired nice people to look after the contestants. That's what happened. Rather than saying you have to be nice and then faking it. You get a key card that gives you access to pretty much all the doors around the studio. You can wander around the building pretty much. You're given free reign. You're trusted, which was really refreshing, and it really helped put you at ease because you felt like, oh, these people really like me. So you know, that kind of way. You'd be in the green room, and you could watch from the green room shows before you recorded, or you could go out in the audience and play along. They give you a little notepad and a pen. You could play along if you wanted from the audience. It was brilliant. It was a brilliant experience, and the studio was it wasn't that daunting, although the lights would blind you.
During game time, would you be nervous?
Yeah, because you're on countdown. Like, it's just bizarre seeing all these things that should only be on television.
Yeah, to just use the scene from the kitchen table.
And the first kind of culture shock of seeing the show being strange was in the makeup room. In the makeup room, that you're getting stuff, just TV makeup put on, and there would be Susie Dent from Dictionary Corner and Rachel Riley, who co-hosts the show, getting their makeup done in the same room at the same time as you. You'd have a little chat to them while you were getting your stuff done, and then there was a screen in the background showing what was going on in the studio at the time, and it just looked like watching Counting on telly, except with just lighting people walking around and cables being brought, and it was just bizarre.
Surreal experience.
Oh yeah.
So let's talk about how far you got in the show.
I had the arrogance to bring along 8 numbered jumpers with me to wear, because what happens is they let you win a maximum of 8 shows. So if you go on the program, you win your first game, you get a second game, then a third, so on, and 8 is the maximum you win. And depending on your score, you might get into the top 8 for that series and come back to the quarterfinals. So because I knew this was a once in a lifetime opportunity, I was like, oh well, I need to do something to mark it. So what I did is I brought along the maximum of 8 jumpers just in case I managed to win a few. And put numbers on them to mark which show it was. I was perfectly happy to wear one and go home. That could have happened because, you know, when you go on, you're definitely going to be meeting someone, well, pretty much definitely going to be meeting someone who's already won some shows. Yeah. So the likelihood is you'll be just cannon fodder in their run. And that's what I was prepared for. So I had my number 1 jumper on. Then when I got the second show, I was delighted. I thought I might have a maximum of 3 because I had a feeling there was a fella coming on the third show who had the beating of me. But luckily that wasn't the case and I got through. So I won all 8 shows, which was unexpected and brilliant. Happy days. I had a little bit of security in my first game, actually, to be honest. I found out by accident on one of the forums, the Countdown forum, that I was going to be playing a fellow called Philip Peel in my first game. Like he said, I'm recording this date. Who's that date? I was like, I'm recording that date. I was like, we're probably going to meet. So we had played each other online, and I bet him every time. Every time I bet him, like slaughtered in one case. And I was like, okay, I can beat this fellow. And that got inside his head. When I played him in real life, he didn't play to his normal standard, because I think he was intimidated because of our online record. Sure. He was like, oh no, it's Eoin Jackson. He kind of let that get to him. Like if he had played to his normal standard, I mightn't have won it. It would have been a closer game. But
is it really competitive between the two who are against each other?
No, not really. But it depends on the person.
Okay.
I've heard stories.
Did you have any instances, or was everybody quite?
I did. I had one instance of someone who, she hates me saying this because I actually said this online. She's like, "How did you say that about me, Owen?" But it was true. She was really hyped up and psyched up for the game. Herself and her husband had been practicing for months in advance, and she really loved the show and saw herself doing well. And she was a very good competitor. But she made some mistakes early on. Like she declared an 8 with a phantom letter. If she stuck with like a 7, we could have gone to a crucial conundrum. But she made some errors early on, and she was devastated after the game. She was in tears. I was trying to console her and the whole lot, but she was very competitive and did not like the numbers on the jumpers. She made no secret of that. Yeah, you see, the way it went was they recorded 5 shows in a day. The first 5 shows that I had, I was show 1 on the Monday, and I won my first 5 shows, and that was fine. Everyone that day got on brilliantly. It was such a great atmosphere. The second day, see, there's a difference coming in as a challenger with a number 1 in your jumper. When you come in the second day of recording with a number 6 in your jumper, it's like, who does he think he is? That arrogant prick.
Yeah.
You know, that was kind of, there was a little bit of that from Debbie and from Stuart. You know, it wasn't quite as cool as the first day, and I blame the numbers for that. So it would be a slight regret, but at the same time, I didn't know I was going to win that many shows. You know, it just happened that all 8 jumpers were needed. I didn't know that was going to happen.
So you made it to the quarterfinal.
Yeah.
Did you wear a jumper?
I didn't. I was gonna. People were asking, what are you gonna wear for the quarters? Are you gonna wear a QF badge or a number 9 badge, or what way are you gonna go with this? And I decided not to go with any badges at all. Just because basically the Octron was the badges. Winning 8 shows, that was the aim. I managed to do it. It was a great. Okay, let's just see what happens next. And so I didn't do anything gimmicky with my clothes. I just wore a jumper.
And who were you up against in your quarterfinal?
A fellow called Noel McIlvany from Northern Ireland. He's a teacher. And we had played each other online a lot. Like he joined Aptris around a year before he recorded for the purposes of recording. Like that's why he joined the site. And I used to play Noel a good bit online, and I beat him nearly all the time. Then we got close. Then it came to a stage where he'd normally beat me. And the last 3 games we played online, he had won quite comfortably. So I suppose it was like Philip Peel and me, it was like the reverse of that.
Yes.
Whereas like I saw Noel as, well, Noel is the king of this now, he has the beating of me. But in the studio it was actually closer than I expected. He did win, but only by 2 points. Very close game.
Did you play to the best of your ability on the day?
I was really happy with my performance. I saw 2 9s. I got localizers early on, and then got a really nerdy one. Like I have this list of photograms that I have where you see something like, let's say you see road east. That's not a word. But if you see road east, which is very easy to spot, asteroids there. Yes. So I had a whole list of these that I'd learned off. One of them was, if you see the word dominator spelled incorrectly with an E instead of an O, dominator, that's not a word, but if you see that, then this strange obscure word monradite is there, which is some kind of geological crystal or something. And so I saw, and Noel had this in seconds. I looked back on telly to see, you know, I could see that he had that. 1 second to the clock, Noel was kind of looking all kind of furtive, and has he got the 9 yet? This kind of looking over me. I saw rationed with an M, and I was like, rationed with an M is something. I couldn't think of what it was. And then I kept messing with it. I was like, dominator. I was like, oh, dominator ER, that's something. I was trying to think, what is that? It's monradite. And I had it on 28 seconds. And so that was like, Oh, so delighted I got that obscure word because I nearly missed it. Now there are obviously, if you're going to have a game with 2 points in it, there will be some regrets.
Yes, of course.
Here are mine, right? Again, my nerd list. There's a word pronate that comes up in Countdown all the time. It means something to put your hand like that or something. But anyway, pronate comes up all the time and it's an easy spot. Pronate came up in our game. Now if you see pronate with an extra E, the word patrony is there. Patrony, however it's pronounced. And I saw pronate at the very last second because of the last minute spot. I should have seen it earlier, I don't know what I was looking at. But I didn't see the extra E. If I'd seen pronate earlier, I would have seen the extra E. We got patrony. Noah got that. He got patrony. He scored 8 points for that. I scored 0 for pronate. If I'd seen patrony as well, I would have won the game. But that's how it goes. That's how it goes. There's another one as well, actually, another round where he got pannier for 7. Now I had seen pannier, but I dismissed it as a non-word. I didn't realise it was a real word. So I dismissed that. So and it was Noel declared first, and he said he had a 7. At that point, I could have said, I have a risky 7 not written down, and I could have gone with pannier. But instead, I stuck with a safe 6, and
it cost you.
So there are a few moments that you look back and regret, but overall, me winning 8 games was quite something because I just didn't think it was going to happen, and a lot of the people who I play with regularly on the site didn't expect it to happen either. Like it's like, wow, you got 8, well done you. You know, it's like I wasn't really considered a contender to win 8, so delighted with that.
You seem to be someone that loves language.
I am, and I do.
Can we talk a little bit about when I was preparing for this interview? I came across something online, and I checked with you before we recorded to make sure that this was true, because to me it seemed absolutely obscure. To the extent that I didn't believe it was true.
It is.
You have a language that you created called Lamph.
Yeah, the language to Lamph. That's the one.
Can you tell me what is this? How did you create it?
That's just a child playing, really, is all that is.
You came up with it as a kid, were you?
Yeah. I used to do all kinds of odd things. I mean, you grow up out in the middle of nowhere, out in Branston Head, which is like this really remote headland, and fields and beaches and hay and
amazing spot.
So it was an interesting childhood, and sometimes you do weird stuff. Like we used to play a lot of drama games where you pretend to be certain characters, just odd stuff. And one of the things I did was out of boredom one day, I just wrote down the alphabet and then changed the letters to correspond with the actual letters. So like A was E, Y was I, and a few different things were changed. And then using that new alphabet, I then just did certain phrases like my name is Owen became no Mina of Eoin, things like that, right? And from that, then I was like, oh, I can make up a whole language from this. But it wasn't just based on that alphabet thing. That was just the very start of it. Then I just started making other made-up, stupid nonsense
technicalities
words.
in the word, in the language.
Yeah, and then it grew to being something that you could hold a full conversation in. It was mainly myself and my sister. We did the music together, and we also did this together. So she'd know most of it now. She'd be very fluent at the language of Lamph. When we were teenagers, we used to go into like the Kylemore Cafe up in the city square and have a full-blown conversation the whole time we were there in that language. And it means you could discuss the people around you with them not really knowing what you were saying, so it had its benefits in some ways.
And do you see a future for the language? Where could the language go?
No, it's just like ridiculous. There's not really much point to it. I mean, I did teach it to my nephew, and I gave him 3 years ago. I gave him his junior cert language Lamph exam. I must have signed a Leaving Cert one from actually. That's next on the list. Although the junior cert one took so long to examine, I'm not sure I have the patience to bother with doing that. And Kevin was like, he's in 2 minds about how much he wanted to study for it and do it. He's like, this is so stupid, but okay, I'll do it for the laugh.
If somebody wanted to learn the language, how can they do it? Or is it inaccessible?
I toyed with kind of putting it online. I didn't really put much of it online. It's mainly just in a book I have. I did put one thing online. When we did Kevin's Language Lamph Junior Cert exam in 2015, was it 2015 or 2016? One of those years. Myself and Claude recorded a listening test, which is 45 minutes in length, which has various different segments, stories and things, and conversations between people. And some of them are quite funny. So what I did was, although I don't really get time to do this, it's not a priority, I made a video of it and put it online on YouTube. So there's a video of one of those with the language Lamph stuff and English translation and subtitles, and at the end there's a vocabulary lesson.
What does it sound like to listen to? Could you tell us a little bit? Could you give us a sentence or give us?
Oh yeah, of course. I already said no meaning of aim. See, I can't think of anything now.
If I said to you,
go on then.
If I said to you, oh, we're in Tremor today recording and it's a beautiful day.
Alright, yeah. Rasum 8 are Tremor a night, like Ovum more night 8, Rasum 8. No word for recording, so I record on.
Record on.
Yeah, if there's a word that isn't in it, you just put it in English. Ing is A at the front, O-N at the end, so at record on would be recording. Although there isn't a word for that yet.
Did your parents ever hear you speaking this language?
Yeah, all the time.
What did they make of it?
Sometimes they'd be like, stop that, because they know we're saying something we shouldn't be.
Yeah.
You know, it's like kind of, like say my sisters were smoking and they weren't meant to be, and I'd be like, the Mohiard Shri of and Sul Shticks, she'd know I was saying something.
Yeah.
That was basically warning them about, you know.
It's a good way of communicating with someone.
Yeah,
it's sort of like communicating in code.
Often it would be used for that purpose, you know.
They kind of copped on. They knew.
It didn't take them long to cop on.
They knew.
They know by the head of it.
There was trouble. Yeah.
Yeah. They'd be like, "What are you saying? You're not to do that. Whatever you're doing, stop it." Yeah. Yeah.
And Lamph, you also have a band.
The same name, yeah. Lamph. That's the band. It's not really a band as such. It's been myself and Clodagh, my sister, who are both involved in language.
Yes.
Also, have been making music. We write songs and we'll record them every so often. Lamph, it had a moment in the year 1997, going back a long way.
Before I was born.
Yeah, when the head of Universal Music in Ireland came down to see us play the Majestic in Tremor. So there was some interest there. He didn't like the way we performed. What he said to us was, yeah, no, I've changed my mind. He'd offered in advance. He'd offered us a 2-album deal. So he had offered us in advance, but I said, now this gig doesn't matter now. That deal is there anyway. But I just want to see you perform in this case. Afterwards, he changed his mind. Said, actually, no, I'm not sure about your performance style. It's a little rigid. You're not great performers. So what I'd like to do is I'll take this song, and we'll offer it to other people to release. And I was like, no. I was young and cocky, and I didn't like the idea of anyone else doing my music, so it's like, no, we deny that offer.
You don't regret it though, do you?
No, not particularly.
No, I mean it's your music, it's your right to keep it. So how can people access your music?
Search Lamph on YouTube.
And it's available all there?
It's I think the first couple of results are all us. It's like when you type that word in, even from, like, obviously it personalizes results to me, but I think generally from a neutral computer it would still be the first 5 or 6 results would be our music videos.
You've done some pretty amazing things in life, things that are quirky and unique. What advice would you give, finally, just to close the show, what advice would you give someone listening at home today who says, you know what, I want to be like Eoin Jackson, I want to explore different avenues, I want to do things that are different. What advice would you give them?
I don't know. I'm happy with what I've done. Like, the thing about being in the XLc Project, we're not properly funded, but at the same time we have a massive amount of control over our life, and it's so good to have that. Like, we can decide the timetable to suit our needs. We can take holidays whenever we want. If we decide to have a day off, it's like, tell the lads on Facebook, lads, look, we've a day off tomorrow. It's like just great having that kind of control over your life and what you do. So yeah, like, my advice to anyone at all is just try and have a happy life. Try and do what you can, have as much control as you can to make your life as happy as you want it to be. Don't be afraid to do something different, to be yourself. You know, I mean, they're cliches and you hear them a lot, but it just is true. Like, don't be afraid to be yourself and to do your own things, I suppose.
Eoin Jackson, thank you very much.